Okay, we can go on the record. Good morning, everyone. We're here today for Maryland Public Service Commission case number 9506S, which is in the matter of the continuing investigation of the electric fuel and purchase power cost adjustment charges of Thurmont Municipal Light Company. We can start with appearances from the company.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Tom Rudebush of the law firm of Duncan Weinberg, Genzer and Pembroke, here on behalf of the Village of Thurmont and the Thurmont Municipal Light Company.
Good morning, Mr. Rudebush.
My name is Jonah Baskin, here on behalf of OPC.
Good morning.
Brock Miller as well from OPC, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Harrison Scher on behalf of staff.
Good morning. All right. All right. You can put on Thurmont's case.
Yes, Your Honor. As a preliminary matter, could I have marked for identification as T1 the notice and affidavit of publication of the notice of the hearing?
Thurmont 1 is marked.
And I'd like to move it into evidence, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thurmont 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to call Mr. Chris Sims to the stand, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the testimony that you're about to give?
I do.
And could you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Christopher Sims, S-I-M-M-S,
And your business address, please.
P.O. Box 4151, Ocean City, Maryland, 21843.
Thank you.
Your witness, Mr. Rudebush.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, do you have in front of you a copy of your testimony, pages, which consists of pages 1 through 5?
Yes, I do.
And was this testimony prepared under your direction?
Yes, it was.
Do you have any changes, deletions, additions to this testimony?
No, I do not.
Do you also have in front of you a series of exhibits labeled CSS 1 through CSS 8?
Yes, I do.
And were these pre-filed in this case as mail log 316116?
That's correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor. The witness is available.
Do you want to mark the Mr.
Oh.
Sims' direct testimony and also the exhibits as 1, as 2?
S2, thank you, Your Honor.
Any objection to the admission of
No objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thurmont Exhibit 2 is admitted. OPC, questions for this witness?
Your Honor, can I approach the bench and the witness to provide you and the witness copies of the data requests, which we intend to ask questions about?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, do you have before you a packet of documents, the first section of which is titled OPC Data Request?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, I'd like to have the document OPC Data Request marked for identification as OPC Exhibit 1.
Is that OPC Data Request 1?
Yes, that's correct, Your
It's
Honor.
10 pages.
That is correct, Your Honor.
It is marked. Can you move your mic to the other side of your paper? Thanks.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Sims, was this document before you prepared by you or under your supervision and direction?
Yes, it was.
And do you have any corrections or deletions to make to your data request response at this time?
No, I do not.
And if you were asked the same questions today under oath, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Your Honor, I'd like to have OPC Exhibit 1 admitted into the record.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
No objection.
OPC 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sims, please examine your response to question 1-3F. Can you confirm that in your response you recognized net metering credits as a power purchase?
That's correct.
And can you confirm that Thurmont will include net metering credits on its adjustments in next year's PPCA proceeding?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, can you confirm that Thurmont procured all of its energy directly from PJM since June 2024?
That's correct, yes.
If you could examine question 1-6. Is it correct to characterize your response in OPC data request 1-6 as stating that Thurmont purchased directly from PJM as opposed to purchasing month-to-month blocks because the pricing for the blocks was higher than the target price set by the Thurmont Board of Commissioners?
That's correct.
Is it still the policy or strategy that Thurmont will seek out block purchases of energy if, but only if, the prices are below a target set by the Thurmont Board of Commissioners?
That's correct.
If Thurmont does not procure energy from a block purchase, how else would it procure energy?
They could enter into another full requirements contract. They're not bound to solely consider block purchases. It's just that if they don't make any purchases of any kind, whether it's block or full requirements, they will buy it from PJM since they are a PJM member.
When was the last time that Thurmont entered into negotiations or conducted a price inquiry regarding locking in a long-term supply?
They were part of the RFP from 2023. I think it was June or so of 23.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge about when Thurmont next intends to enter negotiations or conduct a price inquiry regarding locking in a long-term supply?
So, we've been in constant contact with the suppliers since the RFP in 23, and so if the pricing becomes attractive again or close to where the commissioners have set that in target price at, then they would issue another RFP for a longer term supply.
When you're describing constant contact, how frequently would you say you're in contact?
At least once a month.
Thank you. Do you have before you another set of documents titled Staff Data Request Number 2?
Yes.
Was this document prepared before you prepared by you or under your supervision and direction?
Yes, it was.
Do you have any corrections or deletions to make to your data request responses at this time?
No, I do not.
If you were asked the same questions today under oath, would your answers be the same?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark Staff Data Request Number 2 as OPC Exhibit 2 and have it admitted to the record.
OPC Exhibit 2 is marked. Are there any objections?
No objection.
I'm just not sure what it all includes.
Sure, go ahead, take your time.
I guess the risk policy is part of the.
That was attachment 1.
Okay,
to that.
but that's the end of the exhibit?
Yeah.
Okay. No objection, Your Honor.
OPC Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Mr. Sims, please examine your answer to question 2-7.
Give us a second to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you confirm that you indicated that customers in Thurmont are aware that the PCA could be adjusted more frequently as the result of Thurmont's current procurement strategy?
That's correct.
Could you explain how customers were made aware of that fact?
Yeah, as I stated here, so at every Board of Commissioners meeting, Town Council meeting in Thurmont, we have open discussions about the power supply and the changes in the PCA. Well, those discussions started all the way back before the expiration of the current agreement, as we were running short on time and not being 100% positive if we were going to extend that agreement. That is when we had those discussions at the Town Council meetings that mentioned if we did purchase directly from the PJM market, there is the possibility that the PCA could adjust more frequently than once a year. because of those market prices.
Okay, thank you. I have a few questions about your direct testimony. Do you have a copy of your direct testimony with you on the
Yes.
witness stand? Can you confirm that your answer to question 5 reflects your predictions on the market costs of energy in PJM through March 2026?
Yes, I do.
On what basis did you make these predictions?
So the energy cost itself is typically, well, not typically, it is representative of the fuel, the variable marginal cost to create that energy. And that has been extremely stable since January of 23. So we've now had a full 2 years. It's been 24 months that it's been right around $45 a megawatt hour. And so utilizing the contracts, the futures contracts for the next, well, for this time period going out to March of 26, they were predicting, effectively, they have been trades for energy in the future that are still at that $45 level, roughly. And so I don't see any reason why the fuel cost would suddenly change relative to what it's been over the last 2 years.
Are you able to quantify a likelihood that the recovery of purchase power on an actual basis, it would not be in the range of plus or minus 3% of the total 12-month forecasted amount?
Well, I mean, so the capacity and the transmission costs, which are separate from the $45, are effectively known and quantifiable. Now, granted, the transmission rate will change on January 1st of next year, and so I don't know exactly what that rate is going to be. But assigning a percentage, it's really, we would need sort of a black swan event or something other than what's happened over the last 2 years would need to occur, and what that is, you just can't tell. It would take some huge disruption to the supply of the system for some reason, and there's just no indication that that's going to be coming.
Okay, so am I understanding you correctly in that you're unable to determine, like almost like an error bar for your prediction?
That's right. I mean, to predict the energy, I mean, if anybody could do it accurately, even 30 days in advance, you'd be extremely wealthy. So it's just impossible to tell what it's going to be. I mean, in fact, PJM creates day-ahead prices. They don't even get the day-ahead price right. So that forecasting energy prices beyond 24 hours is effectively impossible.
Thank you. Your Honor, I've got a question for Mr. Sims about the direct testimony of Mr. Moisure. Can I ask a question about that now, or would you prefer we bring Mr. Sims back after Mr. Moisure testifies?
You can go ahead and ask the question. I'm not going to mark the exhibit as an OPC exhibit, but Mr. Sims, you were provided with a copy of Mr. Moisure's testimony. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes.
Go ahead with your questions.
Mr. Sims, can you confirm on page 2 of Mr. Moisure's testimony in lines 3 through 6, Mr. Moisure states that Thurmont purchased its energy in 1 month terms?
Yes, I see that, yeah.
Mr. Sims, would you agree with the characterization that Thurmont purchased its energy in 1 month terms?
Not necessarily. I mean, they are members of PJM, and so they are buying their energy in effectively real time. So it's as they're using the energy, they're buying it. So they've been members of PJM since they were integrated since the APS zone, the Allegheny Power System zone was integrated into PJM back in 2004, I believe it was. So they're always procuring their energy, even if they have a supplier that is scheduling energy against that. They've effectively always been buying power from PJM in real time.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Questions from staff?
Staff has no questions, Your Honor.
On page 3 of your testimony, line 25, let me know when you're there. You compare the Thurmont's cost to that of Potomac Edison, and you use for Potomac Edison .10202. Where'd you get that?
Yes, so they have already published it on their website what their standard offer service rates will be starting June 1st of 2025. And so that is the standard offer service default rate for a residential customer starting June 1st. And it includes the transmission cost as well, because the transmission is still part of the SOS total power supply cost.
Okay, while you have Mr. Mosier's testimony in front of you, at lines, page 2, lines 8 through 11, Mr. Mosier makes a comparison with Potomac Edison and uses for Potomac Edison .09475, which is slightly less than the .0983.
That's correct. So that rate, in all likelihood, I don't have the tariff in front of me, but that 94.75 from Mr. Mosier's testimony likely does not include the transmission cost in there as well. So if you were to take that transmission cost and add it to the 94.75, it would likely come out to be exactly the number that I provided in terms of what the current rates are for those customers.
Okay, so the comparison that Mr. Mosier did puts Thurmont's price slightly higher than Potomac Edison. Is that correct?
Well, no. So even after, so currently today, Thurmont's PCA is .07226. Sorry. So today it's actually very far below what theirs is, and even after June 1st, we're only going up to 90.35, and they're going to be at 102. So it's even the future one is still below what Potomac Edison is today.
Can you define line loss, please?
So the line loss, in terms of its physical definition, it's the power that's lost between the wholesale meter that is interconnected with the town and the transmission owner, so First Energy in this case. They have meters there that measure all of the wholesale load of the entire town together, and that's what our PJM bill is based off of. We buy energy at that interconnection point with the transmission owner. To get that power then from the wholesale interconnection meter to the actual end-use retail customer within the town system, energy is physically lost. And that's because you have to step down the voltage, and when you step down the voltage, there's heat in those transformers, and energy is lost as heat. Obviously, the more distance you have to travel, you lose energy. So there is energy that is lost, and there are also some things that you don't meter and charge for, like street lights. It wouldn't make sense, or traffic lights. You wouldn't go out there and put a meter at every traffic light. So, you just don't bill for those effectively. And so so line loss, in terms of how we calculate that figure, is the difference between the wholesale purchases at the wholesale meter, the interconnection meter, and if we add up all of the retail sales to the retail customer. So that number is going to be noticeably lower because we lost energy getting it delivered from the interconnection point to the end-use customer.
Okay, and I'm familiar with Thurmont and other utilities talking about how extreme weather can affect line loss.
Right, and so what we have, in a perfect world, if we could measure the retail sales exactly in the same time period as the wholesale purchases, then the line loss figure would be accurate in terms of that would represent the physical loss of power between the wholesale meter and the retail customers. What we have here is we don't read the retail meters at midnight on the 1st of every month like the wholesale meter is read. So our retail sales period does not match the exact same 365 days as the wholesale period because the wholesale is exactly calendar month and the retail meters are read around the 15th of each month. So there's a 2-week shift, effectively, difference in when the retail meters were read and when the wholesale meters were read. And so that's why it's not truly line loss then as the difference because we can't measure both at exactly the same time.
So I understand, but why does that require that there be such a significant estimation of line loss?
Right, and so so in this particular instance this year, so they read the retail meters on January 15th. Then the following 2 weeks, it was extremely cold. And so all of that energy that those customers actually consumed in those last 2 weeks of January are not included in the retail sales of this test year. Even though it's physically in January, it doesn't show up until the retail meters are read on February 15th. It will go back to January 15th, and so it'll have that usage in there in the retail side. And so that's what I'm saying. So it's not included on the retail side, but it is there on the wholesale side because the wholesale meter is exactly for the usage January 1 to January 31 of this year. So the wholesale meter had way more purchases relative to what we were showing as retail sales because the retail sales measurement was stopped on January 15th. So that's why when the meters are read in February, then you're going to have the reverse effect. There is going to be way more retail sales from January 15th to February 15th than there were wholesale purchases from February 1st to February 28th. And that's what will bring the line loss calculation back to a more average figure.
So I should expect when I see you here next year for that line loss figure to be back down to closer to what it's been on average?
Well, as long as we don't have another weather event. What I'm saying is when we read typically if you get into either a spring or a fall season, that's where the seasonality doesn't have any effect on it. So if we were to have these hearings every May, and so that it has usage for April in there, there's no real variance in weather during April. And so every April, if you looked back 12 months, the line losses would be approximately the 4.4%. And so, yes, over time, like.
But the line losses are not actually increasing. It's just
No, the physical line losses are not. It's just how we are forced to be able to calculate it is there's a difference in when the retail meters are read and when the wholesale meter. It's not an actual change in physical line losses. That's correct. I mean, alternatively, you know, since we do know that their retail meters are read on the 15th, and we do get an hourly wholesale load from the, I mean, that's provided all the time. And so if we looked at the wholesale purchases that are in the exact same period, not exact same, as close as we can get to the same period as the retail sales, it would provide a more average, realistic line loss figure. And so we could go back in there and only include the wholesale purchases up till noon on the 15th of January. And that way, but then it wouldn't include the actual wholesale purchases that were at the end of January, which we know occurred, which is why I, rather than truncate the wholesale period, it's better to increase the retail sales to match what actually happened in the end of that month.
Your testimony on page 3 at the bottom, you give a residential bill impact. Is that a total bill impact?
That's correct.
Okay, it's a pretty significant increase this year,
That's
correct?
right.
Okay, what's driving that increase?
It's 100% the capacity cost increase. And so the capacity cost, which was about $30 a megawatt day, went to $270 a megawatt day. So it was a 900% increase for the APS zone. So that's not just Thurmont, that's everybody that's in the Allegheny Power System zone is seeing that same increase, unless they purchase their capacity ahead of time, which you could have done, but I've got other clients that they've been paying $80 a megawatt day in order to procure some of their capacity ahead of time. So they've been paying effectively a premium. They've been paying too much over the years relative to what it has been historically, because historically the capacity cost has been relatively stable. Now, sure, there are some years where it's higher than $30 a megawatt day, but over the last 2 or 3, it's been averaging that. So there hasn't been a real reason before today to effectively try to consider, like those power supply contracts that we were negotiating didn't even consider capacity. And the reason the capacity cost went up ninefold is 100%. There's no question about it. Everybody knows it's the addition of the data centers to handle the AI load, the artificial intelligence load. So the big tech companies have proposed, I believe it's 7,000 megawatts worth of data centers alone in Northern Virginia. And so to give you an idea, the APS zone as a whole is about 9,000 megawatts. So just data centers that they're adding over the next 5 years are going to be equivalent to basically the size of Pennsylvania. And so that in order to accommodate that, PJM needs the capacity, needs generation capacity to cover that increase in load. And so the price has gone up to account for not only that huge increase in forecasted demand that's going to be, now may or may not come to fruition. You know, it's hard to say whether or not all 6,000 megawatts is going to be built. But that's effectively worst case scenario. If it is, these are kind of the capacity costs we're going to have to pay until enough generation is built, and then the capacity cost will go back down to whatever its long-term average turns out to be. And they had said it was going to be $90 a megawatt day. So even the experts at PJM who get all of the bids from all of the generators and hold all the capacity auctions, they thought it was going to be $90 and it was $270. So they were off by a significant margin. And so yeah, if there wasn't an increase in capacity cost, we would actually be reducing the PCA today because the energy costs have come in below our expectation. But it's unfortunate that the increase in capacity was far greater than the reduction in the energy cost.
Thank you. Do you have Ms. Alexander's testimony in front of you?
I do have it, yes.
Can you turn to page 8 and let me know when you're there?
Okay.
So at the top of page 8, I guess starting before on page 7, Ms. Alexander gives the average usage as 1,070. In your testimony at the bottom of page 3, you have 1,000. And then Ms. Alexander says it should be an increase of $19.35, and you've got $18.09.
Yeah, the reason I use exactly 1,000 kilowatt hours is because, one, that is close to the average. So you can see an average customer used 1,070. And so when you look at a 1,000 kilowatt hours exactly, then you can make larger generalizations. You can do direct comparisons to other people's rates because they're not going to put their average in PE of their number of kilowatt hours. So it's to make it apples to apples. So when we compare our rate to the standard offer service rate of PE, you know, that's based off of per kilowatt hour And then obviously these are just converted over to megawatt hours. So
Sorry, there used to be a calculator up here, but
mhm.
it's not here anymore. So the difference in the increase in the two testimonies is just the kilowatt hours.
That's right, yeah. I used exactly 1,000 just because that's just the standard that everybody uses, so that when you're comparing total bills, it's easier when everybody does it on a per kilowatt hour basis or per megawatt hour, either way.
All right, I don't have any further questions. OPC or staff, do you have any questions based on mine?
Staff has no questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
I do, Your Honor. I do want to clarify something
Sure, go ahead.
at the risk of living dangerously. Mr. Sims, you were asked questions earlier about page 3 of your testimony about Potomac Edison's price to compare being the 0.10202 per kilowatt hour, and that was for a time period beginning on June 1.
Of 25.
Of
Will begin.
2025.
That's correct. Mhm.
Okay. And in that same answer on line 22, you said that Thurmont's current PCA is 0.07226. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now, you were also asked questions about Mr. Mosier's testimony, and if you want, please refer to page 2 of his testimony, lines 7 through lines 11.
Okay.
So on line 7, Mr. Mosier testifies that he's examining what time period?
June 2024 through January 2025.
All right. And then on line 11, he's quoting Potomac Edison's standard residential price as being 0.09475, and he says that's over the same time period. So what time period is he talking about?
Right, still June 2024 through January 2025.
And that's not the same time period you were talking about in your testimony on page 3.
That's correct.
And Mr. Mosier says that during that time period of June 2024 through January 2025, Thurmont's average rate for residential customers was 0.0983. Is that correct?
I mean, not the PCA rate, no. I mean, I'm not sure is 0.0983 is, I'm not sure if that's their total bill average. It may be the total bill average.
But in any case, it's not. Your testimony is that the current PCA during this time period of June 20.
0.07226. That's correct.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you for your testimony today. Any further witnesses from Thurmont?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thurmont Russ, OPC?
We don't have any witnesses, Your Honor.
What is OPC's position today?
Your Honor, we would like an opportunity to file a brief while we think that the power purchase costs over this past year were reasonable. We have concerns about the methodology going forward and the risk that it poses.
Your Honor, that would be appropriate for next year's hearing, I believe.
Staff?
Staff does not intend to file a brief. Not really. I wouldn't support a brief.
Okay. Okay, but as to this year's PCA rate of, what are we at? 0.09035 per kilowatt hours for the upcoming 12-month period, April 2025 through March 2026?
We don't have concerns with the underlying number, but we are concerned with the procurement strategy.
Okay. Noted. Staff?
Thank you, Your Honor. Staff has two witnesses. Would first like to call Tanika Alexander.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the testimony that you're about to give?
I do.
And could you please state your first and last name and spell it for the record?
Yes. Tanika Alexander. T-A-N like Nancy. Y-E-K-A. Last name A-L-E-X-A-N-D as in David E-R Alexander.
And could you give us your business address, please?
Yes. 1 South St. Paul Street, 21202, zip code, Baltimore, Maryland.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Alexander.
Good morning.
Do you have with you documents entitled The Direct Testimony of Tanika Alexander, consisting of 12 pages of testimony and 2 attachments?
Yes.
Have these documents been pre-filed in this case?
Yes, they were.
Your Honor, I ask that the direct testimony of Tanika Alexander be marked for identification as Staff Exhibit 1.
Staff Exhibit 1 is marked.
Were these documents prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
And do you have any additions, deletions, or modifications you'd like to make?
No.
Your Honor, at this time, I ask that Staff Exhibit 1 be moved into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Staff Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you. The witness is available for cross.
Let's go OPC next.
We have no questions.
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, give me just a second. Do you agree with witness Sims' statement at page 3 of his testimony that this is a 17.3% overall bill increase?
Yes, I do.
And your conclusion statement on your testimony, you state it's a PCA factor of 0.09035 per kilowatt hours for the upcoming 12-month period. Is that a credit factor or a charge factor?
This would be a charge factor.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Any other questions based on mine?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Staff would next like to call Mr. Kevin Mosier.
Good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the testimony that you're about to give? Could you please state your first and last name for the record?
Kevin Mosier, K-E-V-I-N-M-O-S-I-E-R.
And could you, provide your business address?
6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mosier. Do you have with you documents entitled The Direct Testimony of Kevin Mosier, consisting of 2 pages of testimony and 1 attachment?
I do.
Have these documents been pre-filed in this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, I ask that the direct testimony of Kevin Mosier be marked as Staff Exhibit 2.
Staff Exhibit 2 is marked.
Were these documents prepared by you or under your supervision?
They were.
And do you have any changes, modifications to make to the testimony at this time?
I do not.
Your Your Honor, I ask that Staff Exhibit 2 be moved into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Staff Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Thank you, and the witness is available for cross.
Office of People's Counsel?
Mr. Mosher, were you able to review the earlier testimony of Mr. Sims, either on YouTube or here in this room?
I was.
Mr. Mosher, if you could please review page 2 of your testimony, lines 3 through 6 specifically. When you made your assessment of the reasonableness of Thurmont's procurement process, were you under the impression that Thurmont purchased its power in 1-month terms?
Yes.
Given the testimony of Mr. Sims, do you still understand that to be the case?
I don't recall anything in his testimony that, as far as I know, this is still accurate. But I might have missed something in his testimony.
Do you believe that Thurmont incurs additional risks of impacts from price volatility if their energy is procured off of the day-ahead and real-time markets as opposed to 1-month full-service contracts?
Yes, I think a daily, a daily price I think is more risky than a monthly price, which is more risky than essentially the longer term, the less risk. Conversely, the shorter term, in the long run, should be less expensive. It's a difficult trade-off.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've got no further questions.
So, what you missed was Mr. Sims said essentially that they're, by way of buying from PJM, they're essentially buying it as they're using it, as opposed to like a 1-month term. So we're having some trouble with our comparison to Potomac Edison's rates. Yes. So we may have different time frames, or we may have transmission costs included or not included, and we may have it may be like a comparable PCA rate, or it may not be. But at page 2 of your testimony, and then at page 3 of Mr. Sims' testimony, do you have Mr. Sims' testimony for you?
I do not.
I'm just going to go ahead and give you mine. We're at lines 22 through 27.
Okay.
So the numbers in Mr. Sims, the specific rate numbers in Mr. Sims' testimony and in your testimony are slightly different. It's Mr. Sims' testimony that, in any case, the Thurmont rate is slightly lower than Potomac Edison, which I'm not sure is what your testimony is. Regardless of which of these numbers, if you look at all of the numbers combined, do you have an opinion as to the competitiveness of these rates?
I think, well, let me start. I do think the rates are reasonably competitive. My guess is my calculation may be incorrect. What I did was take the PPCA rates of, I think, 7 cents, and then add it to the tariffed rate, which is about 2 cents. My intention was to compare the energy, essentially everything non-distribution, the energy-only cost of Thurmont to Potomac Edison. I may have done that incorrectly.
So when I'm writing my order, if I use Mr. Sims' rate, I can't go wrong. Is that what you're telling me?
I can't. I'm at the end of the day, I can't tell you which rate is correct. I'm far less convinced now that my rate is correct. I'm not sure which one is. And again, I very much apologize, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay.
I think I did something wrong. I'm just not sure exactly what yet.
Okay. Here, let me. All right, I don't have any further questions. Does anyone else have any questions? Mr. Rudabush has questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mr. Mosier, Mr. Sims says in his testimony that Potomac Edison's price to compare starting on June 1, 2025 is 0.10202. Do you have any reason to think that that is inaccurate?
I do not.
And when Mr. Sims testifies that the going forward PCA rate is 0.09035, you have no reason to dispute that that's the proposed PCA rate going forward.
Well, let me be precise. I have no reason to think it's wrong. Based on the fact that I think I maybe miscalculated the way I'm doing it, I'm not at all confident saying it's correct either. But again, by no means do I think it's wrong. I just,
So if we're comparing apples to apples, we would be comparing the forecasted for the forthcoming period. The town's forecasted PCA of 0.09035, that would be compared to Potomac Edison's price to compare starting on June 1, 2025 of 0.10202. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect from staff?
No redirect, but I do have a request. Staff would like the opportunity to file possible errata testimony to correct a calculation error.
So you're picking up where I'm going. So this is what we're going to do. Everybody's got a little bit of homework. Anybody who wants to file a brief may file a brief. However, you don't have to. If you do file a brief, it's due by March the 27th. And you get one round. And I don't care about page length. So that's your optional homework. There's a couple of things that I just want to make sure I have the right numbers going into writing the order. So it's going to be by way of a bench data request to everybody. So let me know what you think the correct number is, and these are going to be your comparisons. We're looking at Mr. Sims' testimony, page 3, lines 20 through 28, in comparison to Mr. Mosier's testimony, page 2, lines 7 through 16. No errata necessary, but if you'll just let me know which number is correct for those comparisons. And then a second question is comparing Mr. Sims' testimony at page 3, lines 29 through 35, which is the bill impact, with Ms. Alexander's testimony at page 8. Actually, and it starts on the, we'll just say page 8, lines 1 through 4, although it does start on the page 7 prior. Ms. Alexander's testimony has the kilowatt hours and a charge and the dollar increase and the previous charge and the calculations. Mr. Sims' testimony has a different kilowatt hours. I think the time frame is the same, and Mr. Sims has a increase amount, not a total bill amount, and a percentage amount, which Ms. Alexander doesn't have. So I'm sure they are the same based on the calculation, even though I don't have a calculator up here to make that comparison right now. If they're not the same, I just would like to know. I appreciate what Mr. Sims said regarding the underlying 1,000 kilowatt hours versus the actual average monthly usage. So, that's really two long-winded questions. Are we clear? Should I restate them, or we think we're good?
We're good, Your Honor, thank you.
Will you put it in writing? Would you be able to do
No,
that?
you have
Okay.
YouTube.
Okay. YouTube.
But
yes.
I'm happy to, if you have any questions, I'm happy to restate it right now, if I wasn't clear, because sometimes I'm not clear.
For question 2, you said the bill impact portion of witness Sims' testimony on page 3. I missed the lines.
29 through 35.
Okay.
And Miss Alexander is behind you, shaking her head yes, so I think she's on board with what I'm asking.
Okay.
Oh, she's good to go. Do you want to just take the stand now and tell me?
I'm going to confirm that he's correct. It's just that I happen to use the actual town's average rather than just the base average for comparison to other utilities.
Okay, so your answer's not getting on the record now, but I'm going to restate. It's just a basis of the 1,000 kilowatt hours versus the 1,070 kilowatt hours. So can you tell me that your percentage is also 17.3%?
Yes, I can actually, I can produce that for you in an answer also if you want.
But you're telling me now you know that to be true?
Yes.
Okay, so delete number 2.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you for your testimony. You can step down. All right. Number 1, I'm sure it's a quick answer. It's just a matter of everybody talking. Did you want me to, would you prefer that I take a recess and jump off the bench and we can confirm that now, or would you prefer getting back to me in a week or 2?
I think we can figure it out now, Your Honor.
Okay. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
5.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go for a 5-minute recess. I'm going to leave YouTube running because it takes a second to spool once I turn it off and I can't get it to run again. So be careful about your microphones. You can turn them off, but a little bit of audio will still pick up. So either step in the hallway or just step away from the microphone, or if you don't care, if it stays on YouTube, keep going as you're going. 5 minutes. Thank you. can go back on the record.
Put it on the record.
All right, I can hear from council, or we can recall Mr. Mosher. Or Mr. Sims, I guess.
Yes, Your Honor, we realize that we do have an error in our testimony, and we will be following an errata. So it appears that Mr. Sims' number is the correct number to go off of.
Okay. So we're going with the June 1st, 2025 Potomac Edison price to compare number of 0.10202 per kilowatt hours. And the proposed increased rate of 0.09035.
That's correct, Your Honor.
So the numbers will change in the errata, but Mr. Mosher will still be stating that the procurement was competitive.
Correct, yeah, my mistake artificially inflated the Thurmont rate, so it compares even more favorably to the Potomac Edison rate, which, as you know, is a competitively bid SMS.
Okay, that works for me. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Thanks for staying a little extra late today. We can go off the record.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.